Love this conclusion so much on how data journalism is also storytelling with a purpose. Let's invite Emre to the stage. Hi, Emre. How are you?
Hello, Ivadina. Fine, and you?
As well, it's been an exciting day so far. Have you managed to follow any of the talks before yours?
I've been following since the start, actually. Great
Okay,
conference.
amazing. Great to hear that. The questions are still coming in, so I'll just ask you one myself first. In many of the projects that you discussed, you kept saying we, I imagine, to refer to your team, talking about the data part and the visualization and the tools you used. And I know we have a lot of data viz designers and journalists in the audience. So I think it would be interesting if you went a bit more into detail on how your team is composed. So do you have a data journalist who does everything? Do you have a designer? Do you have developers or something
Mhm.
completely different?
Yeah, I've been talking about different projects for Journal plus for the IPI. The project with Journal, actually, the one that you are seeing here now, the Turkey map, the News Deserts project. We had done it with a data scientist friend, Emrah
Hmm.
Yilmaz, who actually had the infrastructure to scrape almost all Turkish news websites. So it was beyond the reach of Google News, for instance, because on Google
Mm.
News, if you will just fetch from Google News, you will just get the websites that are subscribed or that have been
Mm.
members of Google News infrastructure. So we went beyond that thanks to Emrah Yılmaz infrastructure. It's also Python based script. And for IPI report, my younger colleague Burak Ütücü helped me with especially the interviews parts, because we had been also conducting more than 20 interviews with media executives across the country, not only in Istanbul but almost all geographical regions. Apart from that, actually, we were just with us. I mean, with the visualization side, etc. It was just these people.
Hmm. Okay. From all of the projects you shared, do you think that the insights and the learnings that you shared, they could they be applied to a more general data viz audience who are not necessarily journalists but just do data visualization in their day-to-day life and work? And if yes, which ones and how?
Mhm. As IPI, we are mostly addressing to the needs of the media community, journalists, press freedom advocates, etc. And with Journal, we are addressing especially next generation journalists. So we are not addressing actually the whole public, but at the same time, of course, we want to have a public effect. Like with the IPI report, because we showed the public that, for instance, Google in the search results are favoring Turkey's pro-government media and actually amplifying the hate speech and propaganda of pro-government media outlets. And that was, of course, outrageous, because we were giving figures, we were giving it really on a fact-based way. So Google contacted us, the top Google officials. We had meetings with them, we had a dialogue with them to improve the news media ecosystem in Turkey, which had been actually damaged by Google as well. So it created an impact, and it went up to the Turkish parliament, and the Turkish opposition and the government ruling parties are having now a debate over the findings of the report in order to extend the legislation, the current social media legislation and digital media legislation.
Okay, that is very impressive. I'll just build on what you just said because we have a very related question. So someone from the audience is wondering if you see an increase in the misleading and inaccurate data visualizations used by propaganda organizations because of your good visualization and journalistic work.
In Turkey, the mainstream media, what we call mainstream media, has collapsed because of the government's takeover for the political reasons. I mean, to turn them into propaganda machines means that, journalism is an interesting profession, that you need to balance the commercial interest of the
Hmm.
company with the public interest of the company. You are only responsible to the reader, to the viewer, obviously, but at the same time, your company should survive, right? So it gives you that survival instinct in a capitalist society, after all. But in Turkey, when the government's pro-government businessmen took over all those biggest media outlets, they suddenly start to see it in a different way. They don't have to be profitable anymore. They can burn the money of the bosses because they are just producing propaganda, and their interest is elsewhere, in another business, in another sector, from the public tenders, etc. That's why right now there is no environment in Turkey to produce anything high quality in the data viz or anything like that in the mainstream media. But smaller outlets, many of them are producing really good work.
And what algorithms did you use to detect the communities of journalists that you were speaking about in your talk? And were there any results that surprised you?
Mhm. For that, I used Gephi's embedded algorithms, Force Atlas 2 for the general visualization, and the clustering of that. So the groups of journalists are determined by with a modularity class analysis. So the colors of those classes are according to the modularity. Uh, if you just if you use Gephi, you can easily find that. Anyone can do that. Sorry, what was the second question, Evelina?
Were there any results that surprised you from those grouping of
Surprising
communities?
result. Yeah, actually, I didn't, for instance, from that IPI report, I didn't expect that Google was. I mean, Google was obviously highlighting many biggest news organizations, which are mostly controlled by the ruling party now. But I didn't know that it was more than 90% of search queries are sending traffic to those outlets. And these search queries are like news. When you search the keyword news on Google, it's a huge query, by the way, because in Turkey every day 1.2 million people search news and get their news like that, whatever Google gives them in that carousel of top news, what they call top news, because the loyalty of news consumers are really low now, because people don't trust to journalists, to most journalists, because of that politicization and polarization.
And have you compared this kind of network analysis to more open media cultures? And if yes, what differences did you find, or you think you would find if you haven't, maybe?
Yeah, I didn't, but it's an interesting perspective. I didn't think about that before. We can perhaps do that as next.
Okay. A question around the IPI Digital project. So I believe that was this unification. How was the engagement of the Turkish people, and how was the project received by media and the audience?
Well, dozens of media outlets contacted us to give more for us to give more information about it, more insights. Even international agencies like Reuters were present in several of our sessions that we hosted as IPI to explain the findings. And especially the last part of the report, that we proposed, that we had some concrete proposals to overcome the current struggles of Turkish journalism. These were like things like, for instance, we are talking about data visualization here, and as you asked me, uh, those news outlets, newsrooms in Turkey, most of them do not even have webmasters, like full-time webmasters. I mean, apart from, I come from, originally I have been at Hürriyet, which is the biggest newspaper in Turkey, and we had only our video section was like 20 people working there. The total number of people working at Hürriyet were more than 1,000 people. So we had really large newsrooms, human resources capabilities, and expertise in every way. We had product strategy or business intelligence, etc. Every kind of departments. But right now, the problem is that most Turkish newsrooms do not have that financial capacity to support such organizations. So freelancing become like the norm, and as everybody's freelancing, even the software people are freelancing, and they are really expensive now in Turkey, because especially because of the recent devaluation of the Turkish lira. And because software engineers, for instance, can be hired by any company in the world really easily, because there is still a gap. So Turks went abroad, a lot of brain drain. And that's why those companies in Turkey, media companies in Turkey, unfortunately, really lack about the design people, software people, every kind of people like that. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much. So this is the end of our questions. Is there a place where people can follow you for more about your work, maybe social media or a website?
Yeah, you can find my LinkedIn and Twitter profiles on my conference profile.
Okay. In the
You can
talk notes,
also,
we
if
have
you
all the
just,
links. Yeah.
yeah, just search my name, Emre Kizilkaya, and my personal website is there. All the links are there, including the links to the reports and on that news article. Thank you again, Evelina.
Thank you so much for joining us. See you.
See
See
you.
you around in the rest of the conference.